And I want to bring in a guy who really has studied everything going on in the great state of Georgia and had some really good insights this week. And that's our good friend, John Gordon. John, thanks for coming on, my friend. Love it.
My pleasure. Nice to see you, Todd.
You had some things to say this week. So can you give us a recap?
Well, I've talked to a lot of people, and I've given a lot of thought to what happened in Dalton, Georgia at the state convention for the Georgia Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was did not sit well with me in the moment. And since the convention, and I've been able to speak to people and confirm what was rumored to have happened, I am thoroughly disgusted. And as I've referred to the Georgia GOP, I believe that it is a entity that is fraught with dysfunction. And I am calling for the resignation of the chair and select members of the executive committee who participated in dirty politics that served to disenfranchise hundreds, if not thousands, of people who came to Dalton on their own dime to participate in what they thought would be an open convention. And it turned out to be a rigged convention. It was fake. It was phony. It was contrived. And I think it's disgusting. I mean, I think they should go join the Democratic Party. I think they'd be very comfortable there.
Well, that they may be, you know, they be maybe wolves in sheep's clothing. So I talked about the prevention of the microphones, but there were other issues. There were issues in the nominating committee meetings where people were calling, you know, the cross-side nominees, to lack of a better term, you know, did you get spanked by your mother, and all this kind of stuff that went down. What else besides just the microphone issue really got you?
Well, the fact that they appointed a chairman of the convention that did not know, evidently, Robert's Rules of Order. And if they did know Robert's Rules of Order, then it was an intentional decision not to follow Robert's rules, in spite of the fact that the convention rules call for following Robert's Rules of Order. And I've become thoroughly disenchanted with Josh Baffoon, the chairman of the party. And I'm not picking sides between he and David Cross. I know David. I like David. I'm not endorsing him for any office.
Right.
I was neutral on the going into the convention. I'm very anti-Baffoon at this point. That what he and his cronies did is just flat out wrong. It is so sophomoric. It is laughable. And instead of saying, oh, well, maybe we went too far, they doubled down on it. And Brant Frost V said, well, I'm not going to apologize for being better at politics than they are. But what he's saying is he is better at dirty politics, unethical politics than the opposition. And that is just so wrong. And the fact that he is almost saying it gleefully and triumphantly is nauseating to me. And he needs to go. He needs to get the hell out of the Georgia Republican Party, off the executive committee with his buddy Josh. I've had enough. What they did to Brian Pritchard and the way that they've operated. You know, there's so many improprieties that I've been made aware of. Evidently, the treasurer did not see the FEC report that they put her name on.
Many times over a long period of time.
I mean, that's forgery. I'm sorry. It is forgery. It is illegal, and it is flagrantly dishonest. And they would not allow the treasurer, I'm told, based on reliable sources, to see the checkbook and the finances of the Georgia Republican Party, of which she has a fiduciary duty, a legal duty to know the finances inside and out. And then to put her name on a federal filing is criminal and one step away from encouraging the FBI to come in and look at the Georgia party.
Well, there's a long...
But they have an opportunity. They can resign, go on their merry way, live a nice, happy life, no problem. But if you dig your heels in and you're going to cling to power that you've achieved illegitimately, watch out. The train's coming. We're coming out.
Well, you ran for attorney general in Georgia, so I think you know what you're talking about. I just want to show a photo. This is a I forget the first gentleman's name, but Brant Frost the fifth and Debbie Dooley blocking the microphones from anyone getting to make a point of order. And a point of order is a privileged motion. If there's a line, you're supposed to be able to get to the front of the line per Robert's rules. And what they were trying to do is put an order or a point of order to have a vote on paper ballots. They had a big, massive component of the convention that wanted paper ballots instead of these clickers, which reelected Josh. So I know the Republican Party National is looking at this. I don't have much hope they're going to do anything. But what are the next steps? You're thinking about FBI. What else do you think may happen?
Well, I've gotten a lot of calls over the last 2 days since the broadcast on Saturday. You are very kind, Todd, to simulcast our broadcast every Saturday from 12 to 2, The Truth with John Gordon.
Let me just say that's on our Rumble and our Gettr, and also you can find it on CDM, Miami Independent, and Georgia Record. But go ahead.
But the broadcast that we did on Saturday pertaining to the Georgia Republican Party has been retweeted. I saw one instance where 8,000 people watched it and commented. I saw no negative comments. And even the people that were the beneficiaries of these people's devilment don't deny it. And it is just so flagrantly wrong. And it is unethical before we even get to the illegality of it. And they've just gone too far. They are wielding power as if this organization belongs to them, as if they're, and they mask it as a corporation. They've relabeled it the Georgia Republican Party, Inc.
Yes.
So one option is to look at a case for abandonment. I think a strong case can be made that they have abandoned the Georgia Republican Party. That is,
there are no filings that we can find that establish the Georgia Republican Party political entity. There are for the corporation, but not for the political entity per Georgia law.
Well, and I think that qualifies as an abandonment. And so we are going to evaluate the legality and the possibility of reconvening the Georgia Republican Party as provided for by statute and electing its own set of officers and a committee and recruit people with values that will behave ethically.
Well, after they watch this, they're going to go file the paperwork for the Georgia Republican Party, which they haven't done for years. But there is also some financial issues with Josh. They're not huge transactions, but using the company credit card for gym memberships and all of this. And then you had the collapse of the Frost First Liberty building and loan, which really highlighted all of this because a lot of people lost a lot of money in that. And I don't know what happened there. We'll see. But what else do you want to get out?
All I know is I was encouraged and asked to invest in, along with the Frost, 6 or 7 years ago. And my simple answer was no. It's too good to be true. Yeah. I am a qualified investor. And I saw it and I said, no, thank you, Jesus, for giving me lucidity on that day.
Yes.
But, you know, I know the entire Frost family. And actually, they have been very nice to me, except Brant Frost the fifth showed his colors when he advertised on my show and gave me an advertisement to read on the air, which I did for, I think, 3 weeks consecutively, based on his commitment that the check was in the mail. And guess what? The check never arrived. And so, and they don't have a check, the canceled check, to show for it either. He sent me a picture of a check just to show you how duplicitous this young misguided man is. He sent me a picture of the check that he ostensibly had mailed. And I told him, I said, it never arrived in the mail, Brant. What's up? And so that was the last conversation I've had with him. That occurred a year or two ago. I can't remember the timing, but I knew at that point that this is a very flawed young man who is not honest. Not only does he not pay his debts, he does not honor his commitments, but then he lies about it. And it pains me to say those things. I derive no pleasure from it, but I am not going to be an enabler. I am not going to be a protector. I've experienced it firsthand. I can speak from a first person perspective on it. And then what he did in Dalton, I think, is shameful. And his boasting that, oh, I'm better at politics than they are. No, you're better at dirty politics than they are. That's not cool, man. You need to go sit, look in the mirror, and do a lot of introspection, because what you are doing is wrong. And I'm afraid the chickens have come home to roost. Now, Brant Frost the fourth, and on Saturday I got them confused. I was on the third and the fourth, but it's the fourth and the fifth. Father is the fourth. He and I went to high school together. I frankly don't remember Brant from high school, but he does remember me and remembers my dad, and has spoken very approvingly of my dad, and that really warmed my heart. I've had nothing positives from Brant the fourth, and from Krista, and from their daughter, who I encountered in the campaign when I was running for Attorney General. They were very helpful to me. They were very nice to me. They were donors. Thank you. I appreciate it. I have not forgotten that. And I wish them no ill will. I really don't. Brant the fifth has got to, unfortunately, he needs to go to the woodshed. He needs a very tough lesson in love. I'm sorry. And I've heard some concerning things about the daughter, who I know and I like, whose name is escaping me. Katie, thank you. But unfortunately, I think she is engaged in some dirty politics as well. Y'all just need to stop it. You need to stop it. Chill out. Go take a break. Reflect on what you've done, and realize that what you've done has been very destructive to the Georgia Republican Party. It was also very destructive to the Georgia Republican Assembly.
Yes.
And they're creating this campaign of dissension and hostility, and it just needs to stop. Meanwhile, my concern is that we reorganize the Georgia Republican Party and get honest power brokers. There are a lot of really genuinely good people that have been sucked into this web of deception and deceit and dirty politics.
There are, and I'm hoping the scales come off their eyes, because, a lot of them are older and just think that the GOP can't do anything wrong, because otherwise we'll get Stacey Abrams. Well, that's true, but we kind of have that already with what's in there now, in my opinion.
Well, if we get Stacey Abrams, they have no one but themselves to blame, because they've driven the wedge in this party. And my phone has been ringing since Saturday from people saying, what are we going to do? And we're upset, and we're tired of taking it on the chin. And Dalton, I think, was a seminal event. And it really was a reflection on just how bad these people are and what lengths they will go to cling to power. And they don't have fundamental disagreements with the other people in the grassroots. They have fundamental disagreements about who's going to control the party. And they want to control it with this little band of thieves that are going to enable Josh McCoon, who I disaffectionately refer to as Josh Baffoon. I've had personal experience with him too. And I just don't think that he operates in what's in the best interest of the party. I think
your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Igor Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals. and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and ERA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
Party, I think he operates what's in the best interest of him and what he can do to incur favor with the little group of people that embolden him and empower him. It needs to stop. The house of cards needs to collapse. And I'm sorry, can I just share something with you? And this is who I am. And I'm not trying to say, oh, look how great or good I am. I'm really not. But it gives you a reflection of my mindset. And that's what I'm trying to convey. I founded a charity in English Avenue called the Friends of English Avenue. It was designed to rehabilitate the worst zip code in America. Worst for obesity, diabetes, homelessness, helplessness, joblessness, illiteracy, obesity. Largest concentration of HIV in the country for any one zip code. Every social ill known to man was there.
And is that in Atlanta? Where is that?
Yeah, in the shadow of the Coca-Cola building on North Avenue. Yeah. And in 2006, the Atlanta police entered the home of Catherine Johnston, a 92-year-old grandmother, and she thought she was being burglarized. She was guilty of nothing, suspected of nothing. The police just did shoddy police work. They lied to get their no-knock warrant. They entered this single lady's home. She had a rusted out pistol that she sat next to while watching TV, and she heard all this ruckus at her door. She thought that she was being burglarized. She reached for the gun. Just as the cops were busting through her door, she managed to fire one shot. It went into the ceiling. They filled her full of 32 rounds of ammunition and killed her. Then they planted marijuana in the basement. They got a confidential informant who thought he was being set up, put him in the back of the police car and said, "This is what you're going to say." Long story made short, the whole story fell apart. They went to jail, 6 police officers, which is very hard to have happen. And we created a charity out of the despair that the neighbors and other people felt for that neighborhood. It is now rehabilitating. But my point to you is we collected over $1 million. Every single penny we collected, we published for the world to see every penny that was spent.
Yeah.
We planted 2 beautiful urban gardens, and one of our gardeners said, "Oh, John, take this tomato home and taste it. It is delicious."
Wow.
I said, "No, I am not going to take the tomato home, but I will give the organization $1 for the tomato, and I will take it home and I will eat it."
Good for you. Yeah. What's the name of that charity?
Fiduciary duty of trust. Now, Josh McCoon, as I am told, I don't have proof positive, but I got reliable sources that I believe, has been caught red-handed paying his gym membership out of the Georgia Republican Party. That's all I need to know. If you've stolen from the party for your gym membership, what else have you done? Have we paid for your wardrobe? Have we paid for your clothing bill, your laundry bills? Have we paid for your travel and your expenses? I have no problem if he's gone out to dinner with people and had a legitimate business meeting. But I just think that we're seeing, what was that lady that was head of the Republican National Committee?
Ronna McDaniel.
I think we're seeing Ronna McDaniel in men's clothes. I mean, I don't know the extent of it, but I don't need to see much before I become very
Well, that's a good point, because at the convention, there were a lot of accusations against Josh financially by the other side. There were, and Katie Frost was appointed head of the chair of the Georgia Republican Party Financial Advisory Committee the day before the convention. And then right after the convention, their business collapsed. I mean, it just smells. I mean, we don't know.
Well, what was her role? Was this some sort of an audit committee that was appointed?
She was appointed chairman of the Georgia GOP Financial Advisory Committee the day before the convention.
And what's that committee charged with?
I don't know. I mean, I think it is I can't answer that question.
Well,
But
given the closeness to between the Frost family and McCoon, you
Mhm.
would, if it was supposed to be the committee that was going to report on the finances of the Georgia Republican Party, I would allege that that is putting the fox in charge of guarding the hen house.
Well, that's the point. It stinks.
Yeah.
It just
Well,
so.
the whole thing stinks, and this house of cards that they've constructed needs to be torn down. I I don't have a successor in mind.
Mhm.
I don't know who that should be. I just want to start with. I just think we need a clean start and a fresh break here. And so I'm calling on McCoon, uh, Frost, Frost, and Debbie Dooley, and the
Mhm.
people who participated in the devilment in Dalton to step down.
Well, we want to help you with that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not a mean person.
Mhm.
I don't have anything against those people. Quite
Mhm.
the contrary. I cheered Debbie Dooley on in 2022 when she was going after Kemp,
Mhm.
and he did not come to our rescue in the 2020 election. Um, the amount of duplicitousness that he engaged in is just astounding.
Yeah.
And we had people that went to the GBI with hard evidence, and then he had lunch with friends of mine the same day, or not the same day, but the same week or 2 weeks later, and said, "Oh, we've looked at all the evidence, and there's nothing there." That is just not true.
No, it's just
And
not. Yeah.
and Debbie Dooley was one of the biggest advocates for election integrity. I really am disappointed that she has decided to engage in this dirty, unethical politics. But don't have anything against any of these people.
Well, it's about controlling the power structure from before 2020, keeping that in place. I think there's foreign actors involved. You could look at the bill that was just passed in the legislature to protect China Chemical from liability. I mean, what the heck's going on there? And you know what? We did a big series last year on Fulton County and the trust issue where there was a $2 million trust given, and 20 years later, it was still $2 million. Millions should have gone to Republican candidates in Fulton, and nothing did. But a lot went to Dominion lobbyists and other things.
Well,
And
we were going to get the report of the audit
mhm.
after the Republican National Convention. Where's the audit report?
Well, I know all about that. We've reported on it. I think there's 9 articles on the Georgia Record. But my point is, last couple days after your broadcast and after a lot of other things that came out, our show on the Georgia show yesterday, people came to me who were involved in that and said, look, maybe this needs to be looked at too by the FBI.
Well,
So
I definitely think some. Look, like I said, I derive no pleasure from this, none. But I'm not going to sit idly on the sidelines with information and become an enabler or say, "Oh, it's okay." It's not okay. It's just not okay. It is not okay to pay for your gym membership out of the Georgia Republican Party treasury. It is not okay to block people who traveled to Dalton in good faith as delegates to participate in a open process based on bylaws that are published and should have been followed. It is not okay to appoint a chairman to impose parliamentary rule and then not follow the parliamentary rule. It all is just so repugnant to me.
Yeah.
And just one last thing on this paper ballot versus the clickers. I totally get both sides of the argument. The clickers are efficient. Counting paper ballots take forever. Okay. Look, I barely got out of high school, but I'm smart enough to know that you can have it both ways. Have the clickers and agree that we're going to audit 10 or 20% of the ballots with paper. You do both. You click and you fill out a ballot, turn them in. There you go. Done. Or the clicker can be just like you go to the polls, get a paper ballot to verify that your vote has been tallied accordingly, and then have an audit. I mean, how many people vote? Are there
Well, just to be clear, they had a plan to do that efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
The paper ballots people came ready. And by the way, they held the convention in the top of the state in Dalton. So people in South Georgia, which are typically the other side supporters, had to drive like 7 hours, spend gas money, which they didn't have, spend hotels. And that was done on purpose too, instead of putting it in Macon or somewhere in the middle of the state.
Well, I was just about to say, in the good old days, when nobody's going to know this name, but Bunny Chichester from Macon, Georgia, they had Chichester's drugstore, and Oliver Bateman, Billy Adams, the guy who ran for governor, Hal Suit, and then the dean of the Republican Party, who did he pass away recently? Is he still living in Sandy Springs? He was Rusty Paul's business partner. Oh, he's the tip of my tongue. They ran the Georgia Republican Party. There was no party. I mean, it was 10 people that showed up in a phone booth. But actually, it was beginning to galvanize. And this was in the late 70s. The convention, it was always in Macon.
Yeah, it's middle.
Everybody could get to it. It was the only people it was convenient for was Buddy Chichester and me. And I was about 15 years old, 16 years old. But I went to the convention. I went to the convention at the Macon Coliseum, and that's when Hal Suit was running for governor. He was probably the first real candidate. He was a newsman on Channel 2 on WSB. And I've got a picture in my office with me interviewing Hal Suit on WMAZ TV, Channel 13 in Macon. I was 16 or 17 years old. So that's how long I've been doing Georgia Republican Party politics. And I love the party. I'm so proud of what we've done. I don't take any credit for it. I was chairman of the Georgia Republican Party Foundation, the money-raising element of the party in the 80s when Billy Lovett was the chairman. David Schaefer was the executive director. And Billy Lovett and I went over and asked Guy Milner to run for governor. And so I've been around the block and involved for a long time. I know what good politics looks like, and I know what dirty politics looks like. This is dirty politics. It's not the party I want to be a part of. I'm not going to be a part of it until we clean it up and get it back on the train on the rails. And it's going to take an army. It's going to take an army of really dedicated, committed people that are going to have to push back on this. But that's what needs to happen, in my view.
Totally agree, John. Anything else you want to get out? How do people follow you? How do they stay in touch with the show?
Well, you can write me at johngordontruth@gmail.com. And you can or you can go see all of our past episodes at johngordon.tv. And you can listen every Saturday right here on the CDM Press Network on their 13 digital platforms and their live streams on Gettr and Rumble. You can also catch our own live stream on those platforms, as well as X, Facebook, something I always forget. But anyway, it's out there on social media.
You're everywhere. You can find it for sure. John, thank you very much, man. I want to have you back.
Todd. Keep fighting. Fight. And Trump needs to weigh in. Somebody from the Trump organization needs to say, this isn't cool. They endorse Baffoon. They've got a role in this too. They need to help bring some accountability.
Well, it's not just them. It's Turning Point. It's a lot of other people. And you're right, but they're eerily silent, and I don't like that. And we're going to make it very uncomfortable for them.
I think they've got their hands full, is my impression. And I don't think they really are studying the Georgia Republican Party. But
they need to. 2026 is key.
Well, I'm telling you, we got to get this stuff fixed in a hurry if we're going to have a chance in 2026. But look, you guys that are doing this silly ass politics, don't blame us, blame you. Go look in the mirror. You're to blame because you're the one who's driven a wedge into this party by playing your dirty little sophomoric games. Get the hell out of here. Go.
Agree, John. Thank you very much. We'll have you back. Take care.